Hello, my fellow non-believers. I am Damien Marie AtHope, and I am an Axiological Atheist, which roughly can be understood as a value theory or value science atheist. Axiology to atheism is meant to denote an atheist rejection of the existence of gods or supreme beings in favor of higher absolutes such as humanity, formal axiology, or naturalistic or universal ethical principles. Axiological atheism can be thought to involve ethical and value theory reasoned and moral argument driven atheism, anti-theism, anti-religionism, ignosticism with an I, apatheism, secularism and humanism. I am very excited to be a speaker at this first ever Atheist of Facebook convention. My topics are the evolution of religion and sexism in the major world religions. I will now begin to discuss the evolution of religion. When I describe the evolution of religion, I will use the prefixes primal, proto, and progressed for the set of stages of development of religion. My use of primal, proto, and progressed as prefixes for the subclasses I have organized, such as early superstitionism, early religionism, and organized religionism, all connected parts in the evolution of religion. The primal prefix is meant to express the very basic aspects appear but not yet fully evolved, or beginning a semblance are starting to come together but lack form. Proto-prefix is meant to express the earliest form of, or all parts or the earliest aspects are now assembled. And progressed prefix is meant to express the concepts or behaviors more fully solidify, or all parts of the aspects are now further developed from previously assembled concepts or behaviors. I would first like to point out that there seems to be some scant possible hintings of the earliest pseudo-superstition before 1 million years ago, and possibly back to 2 million years ago. Yet, likely this is not yet full superstitionism, and it is definitely not religion. But there still is elements there that are forming that will later be the future religion's further evolution. The pseudo-superstition starts with symbolic superstitionism or seeming sacred behaviors that may have been possibly exhibited, even if only in the most limited ways. They start to further standardize around 1 million years ago with primal superstition. Then the development of religion evolution increases around 600,000 years ago with the proto-superstition, and then even to a greater extent around 300,000 years ago with progressed superstition. Religion evolution moves from loose growing of superstitionism to a greater developed thought addiction that is used to manage fear and the desire to sway control over a dangerous world. This began to happen around 100,000 years ago with primal religion. Next, the proto-religion stage is around 75,000 years ago or less. The progressed religion stage is around 50,000 years ago. And finally, after around 13,500 years ago, we begin with the evolution of organized religion. The Cesta stage for the development of organized religion is subdivided into the following stages as well. The primal stage of organized religion is around 13,000 years ago. The proto-organized religion stage is around 10,000 years ago. And finally, the progressed organized religion stage begins about 7,000 years ago with the forming of mythology and its connected set of dogmatic propaganda strains of sacredizing superstitionism. I will now begin to discuss on sexism in the major world religions, which roughly can be thought to happen from the beginning of sexism, and how it is evident in the major world religions afterwards. From an ancient past, evidence shows that sexism was near non-existence, and females were highly valued. Current in the world with the male-dominant thinking, male-centric religions, and the many cultures and societies marginalizing women and promoting sexism, which all seems to devalue and give a lesser status or limit the value of women. Moreover, it should be understood that there were any male gods. There was mainly only female goddesses, animals, aspects of nature, which were held as possibly spirits or maybe something like deities. Many present-day thinkers may find it difficult to comprehend that women could have been valued or been equal to some extent or even hold a position of power, especially political power, in early historic religion and early historic times. However, from the earliest writings, we see that as far back as 6,000 years ago, women were documented as leaders and held other positions of political authority. And this went on for thousands of years, but it starts with the legendary Queen of Ethiopia. Likewise, according to a scientific study, there is further confirmation, which shows that sexual equality is nothing new, even if it is now something long forgotten. In contemporary hunter-gatherer tribes, evidence shows that men and women tend to have equal influence on important decision-making. Such findings challenge the idea that sexual equality is a recent invention, which suggests that it has been a norm for humans through most of our evolutionary history, especially with hunter-gatherers. Getting back to the timeline, by at least 12,000 years ago, female goddesses and not male gods could be thought to be created. However, the female goddess may have been created as early as 40,000 years ago or earlier. Furthermore, I surmise around 12,000 years ago, the possible beginning hints of sexism and later patriarchy. Before 12,000 years ago, women seemed to have a special power of giving birth. But then things started to change. Women started to lose this perceived special magical status. However, as time went on, women were starting to be seen more and more as an object. Since animals were being domesticated and humans started to understand birthing. Nevertheless, do not get me wrong, this is not a one-time dramatic shift. It was a slow process of sexism gaining more and more power. And it took thousands of years to reach its full fruition, the kind of sexism we think of today. One of the oldest written religions is the Sumerians, whose creator being was female and not male. The Sumerian religion is about 6,000 years old, but it could be much older, 7,000 to 8,000 years old. In human history, when did religions subjugate the goddess and by extent all women? Well, it can be considered to have happened around 6,000 years ago. Although it can be hypothesized that male gods hit the scene in force about 5,000 years ago. And it is then that women start to really lose more power and more value, and eventually seems all value. The introduction of the Proto-Indo-Europeans seemed to mark a patriarchalization of agrarian culture, where women were more equal. The earliest extant written sources demonstrate that these invading patriarchal peoples accommodated their divinities to those of the indigenous goddess-worshipping cultures at first, and they did not immediately belittle the importance of a female or a mother goddess. Instead, the literature from 5,000 years ago records, after the invasion, it demonstrates that the fusion of goddess-worshipping cults with the god-worshipping cultures happened, and later goddesses were more removed. In Turkey, archaeologists found 4,000 years old tablets that cite women's rights. However, more progressed sexism continued to develop after 4,000 years ago. Even today, women hardly have any value in some areas, and even regarded as not having an equal status. There is a systemic devaluing, disrespecting, and disregarding of women, and it came before the development of fixed class sexism structures as we think of it today. Around 2,000 years ago, the man-made concept of God, which had taken time to develop fully, started to finalize and complete as the only gender or the main gender of believed gods. It can be said that one of the male concepts, God concept's goals was, or could seem to be, the male control and domination of females, especially female sexuality and their reproductive potential. One of the male God concepts is fully established by the extension men with the promotion of patriarchy. It is relatively easy to maintain and therefore enforce through holy books and laws written by men, which establish women's lower status and deny women education, their rights to their bodies, and exclude them from decision making. Eventually, male dominance and its sexism were established in every known religion, as well as every human society, or close to it, and has lasted now for a few millennium. All religions have, or are prone to, and promote sexism. Some do this more than others, but it is a shame that they all share. Although there is much more I can be said on this, I will only offer a few things as evidence for sexism in each of the current world religions. Sexism in Judaism, the Old Testament. Exodus 21:7. God not only sanctions the selling of your daughter into slavery, but also gives out laws on how it should be done. Leviticus 27:3-7. God places a dollar value on human life, with women and girls less than men and boys. Deuteronomy 22:23-24. Women who are raped and fail to cry out are likely enjoying the attack of rape, thus should be killed. Sexism in Christianity, the New Testament. 1 Corinthians 11:7-9. For a man is in the image and glory of God, but woman is in the glory of man. For man is not of the woman, but woman is of the man. Romans 7:2. For the woman who has a husband is bound by the law to her husband as long as he lives. Titus 2:4-9. Train young women to be submissive to their husbands. Sexism in Islam, the Quran 4:11. Inheritance. The male shall have equal portions to that of two females. Also see verses 4-176. The Quran, the 4:24, and Quran 33:50. A man is permitted to take women as sex slaves outside of marriage. Quran 4:34. Men are in charge of women, and good women are obedient, because Allah made one of them to excel above the other. Sexism and Hinduism. I'm not good at spelling the word names, so Maurmiti 5:148. In childhood, a female must be subject to her father, and youth to her husband, and to when her lord dies, which is the husband, to her sons. A woman must never be independent. In 9-2:4, men must make their women dependent day and night, and keep their own control. Those who are attracted to sensory objects. A woman is not fit for independence. Rig Veda 8:33-17 through 17. The mind of a woman cannot be disciplined. She has very little intelligence. Sexism in Buddhism. The historical Buddha said females' defects, greed, hate, delusion, and other defilements are greater than that of a male's. The historic Buddha refused to ordain women as nuns. He said that allowing women into the nunhood would cause his teachings to survive only half as long. A popular belief in Buddhist countries is the negative karma that results in a man being born as a woman. In Pure Land Buddhism, women must be reborn as a man before they can enter nirvana. In Travasanan Buddhism, claim that a woman could never become a Buddha. The Ecclesial Buddhism Council of Thailand announced publicly that any monk who supports the ordination of women will be subject to severe punishment. Sexism in Shintoism. The Festival of the Phallus is a Shinto celebration centered on local penis veneration in the shrine of Kawasaki, Japan. The legend is that a sharp-toothed demon, Vagina Diente, hid inside the vagina of a young woman and castrated two young men on their wedding nights. As a result, the young woman sought help from a blacksmith, who fashioned an iron phallus to break the demon's teeth, which now has led to the enshrinement of penis veneration, a spiritual practice that sees women involved in a relationship with sight because they are always only blind or visually impaired women who can join this order. Male sight, on the other hand, specifically is to see women out of the public eye. It occupies a privileged position in every form in ancient myths to modern wedding rituals, and continually exerts oppressive influence on the lives of women, monitoring and impeding their public movements. Female pollution involves the idea in Shinto ritual, which is used in the past to justify discrimination against women. Therefore, women historically have been pushed out of the public eye and out of the public religion spaces because of their supposed impurity. And to this day, women are haunted by the belief that their inherent pollution. Sexism and Sikhism. The Guru's teaching on the role of women is stated as, women are conceived, born from women. Women are lifelong friends. They keep the race going. Why would we despise her, and one who gives birth to great men? This is the third guru. Well, that is still saying that it is men that are great because of whom they are, and women are great only if they can produce a great man. That still sounds like sexism to me. Only men are gurus. Only men are part of the five special. And this, yes, again, tells me Sikhism is not completely equal to women. A Sikh who is a self-proclaimed self-claimed feminists states ancient cultural traditions sometimes take precedence over prescribed rituals in Sikhism. And one of the famous Sikh kings of the Mongol India was considered a model Sikh. He had 7 wives. Not only does polygamy go against Sikhism beliefs, but also half of his wives committed sati, which is a widowed woman commits suicide by burning in fire. When he did this happen, they did this when he died in 1839. In Indian society today, school attendance of Sikh girls is lower than school attendance for boys that are Sikh. The Asian Network had reported the rise in Asian couples who were Sikhs traveling to India to abort female fetuses. And no sweets are shared among Sikh relatives to celebrate the birth of a girl. They do celebrate with sweets, usually when it happens to be a boy that is born. Sexism and Jainism. Jainism does not teach that women can achieve ultimate spiritual liberation. Though a woman could survive to be a man in her next life, so she could then reach enlightenment. Jains believe, for example, that even microbes in the air and water are sacred life, and any action that impacts other living beings is wrong, such as driving a car or using electricity. All these things to a Jain leads to bad karma. Therefore, to Jains, bleeding, which occurs in menstruation, is thought to kill microorganisms in the female body, making the female body less non-violent than the male body, and the female body more prone thus to bad karma. Jain texts say that women's genitals and breasts are the source of impurity, and that they have microorganisms living in them that are harmed. Jain theologians have written that due to the body secretions of women, there is a suffering itch which gives them uncontrollable sexual urges. They believe that a woman cannot take higher vows of ascetic reincarnation because naked women would have too deep emotions, shame of being naked, and fear of sexual assault which they might face. Sexism and Confucianism. Confucius about women said women and girls are difficult to handle. If you get familiar with them, they stop being humble. If you keep them away, they become resentful. This sounds like an awful insulting thing to say about women. A well-known sexist Confucianism commandment is, since the age of 7, men and women should not share a room or share food. And when a young woman, she should only obey her father. When married, her husband, and when older, her son. Our creations, later generations of Confucianist scholars have used this to develop even greater sexism tendencies, and this started around the Tang Dynasty era of 618 to 907. According to Confucianism structure of society, women at every level are to occupy a position lower than men. Most Confucianism accept the servitude of women and women to men as natural and proper. Baalism. Highest leadership of the religion is only men. Their central figures are also only men. Women are excluded from the religion's highest governing body, even to this day, the Universal House of Justice, which is confined to men, thus is only sexist, and does not constitute evidence that the Baali faith in any way supports women. but does show a superiority of men over women. In 1997, a Canadian fantasy writer was disenrolled primarily for his outspoken emails in forums for women's full liberation and inclusion of women in the Bali administration. Furthermore, the Bali faith, there are particular cases of assignments of different roles to women than to men at every level, the individual life, family, and society. And that